네, 2020년
국제무예 학술 세미나 마지막 세션 세 번째
We are now having the last session for the International Martial Arts Seminar 2020.
마지막 세션 주제는
For the last session, the theme of the future of the martial arts beyond the pandemic. And the subtitle is Use of the Voices of Youth. The moderator
연구원님께서 포스트
is also Park Ji-hoon, as one of the panelists, the senior instructor of the Korea Institute of Sport Science of Yongin University.
네, 안녕하십니까.
Good to see you all. I am Park Ji-hoon from Yongin University. When I was in primary school, I used to be a Japanese fence player until like professional athlete, and then I turned to the academic area. So rather than the word martial arts, the studio, gym, and sports are the more familiar terms. So I like to cover what I experienced while practicing as an athlete and what I experienced from the academic and what kind of change we should pursue in the era of COVID-19. As you are well aware, COVID-19 started to break out in December last year in Wuhan province, China. So most of the mega-scale events like Olympics were canceled, including Premium League and basketball match. And now we are starting to have such competition without audiences. And South Korea imposed social distancing. So indoor facilities were regarded as a high-risk facility, and they were recommended to stop operating. And they were totally banned from running at all. So sports service industry and the supply industry, gym, and the studio faced a make or break moment. So until this moment, the martial arts studio and gym had to sacrifice themselves. And we need to think about what challenges the martial arts education faced and how we should move forward in the post-COVID-19. What you are seeing is how Texas Doctor Association categorized the high-risk activities. Of course, it is not highly visible. The lowest area is high risk, referring to activities and exercising in a fitness center and gym. In the middle, moderate risk is swimming pool. And in the middle, the bustling areas where many people are gathered. So walking and shopping in this shopping district is considered low and moderate risk. And under this category, camping, golfing, playing tennis is regarded as low risk activity. So it is not about a certain sports category or certain types of behavior. In an activity that happens in a closed area or enclosed area, it is considered high risk. So activities that are happening outdoors, doctors consider them low risk. And this is how we recognize the level of risks. So people tend to say that the outdoor activities tend to have lower risk compared to the opposite direction. So we shouldn't go to indoor facility in order not to contract the COVID-19. So Korea imposed a mandatory mask wearing. Otherwise, you should be fined or charged with certain punitive measures. And indoor facilities were imposed with a ban to stop operating. So globally, Korea is recognized as an exemplary model of responding to the COVID-19. So less and less people are scared of COVID-19. Of course, this might be true only in South Korea. So mask wearing and imposing measures from the government and contact tracing, these kind of measures are somewhat considered as too excessive. But nonetheless, Korea has been recognized as an exemplary model of responding to the COVID-19. We should think about this issue. So, physical activities are happening indoor, and it will entail high risk activities to COVID-19. So people might consider this as a high risk facility. So is it right that the few should be sacrificed for the majority? Of course, we somewhat agree on this issue, but on the flip side, from whose perspective we should consider this as something that we need to take for granted? This is a kind of dilemma. As the majority of people might be killed, we make the minority fall down in order to make the majority survive. In a movie or drama, for the heroism, and when hero takes the minority sacrifice, then we understand. But it is not true to when villains makes the minority be sacrificed. Is there any doctor in this room? So I don't want to make any misunderstanding. So this kind of dilemma is very scary. So we are working for you. So this is sounding scary. So we are working for you. So you should stay at home for us. So for the sake of the majority, of course, this is the right measure and this is something we should put into practice. But if we take this for granted in the sports area or martial arts area, we take this inevitable choice for granted, then we might not be able to find out the right direction to move forward. So what is the challenge facing martial arts education? Nobody predicted how long coronavirus will get prolonged. So we only predicted it would happen in the short term. So the coaches and the masters shut down their business temporarily, waiting for this shutdown measure to be finished. But as the COVID-19 got prolonged, some shut down their business and went bankrupt. This is what I found from case studies. The Korean government recommended shutting down business before banning on gathering. So for 2 to 4 months, the studio did their best in not taking any trainees, failing to pay for their bills. Then the Korean government paid for $500 in recognition of the good behavior shown by the coaches and masters of this martial arts studio. And after shutting down the studio, the coaches and masters did not do a good job in taking care of trainees. This is relevant to the previous context. So education happening in the indoor facility or gym does not get the right amount of importance. As shown from the session 2, if the sports is not related to Olympic Games or something big, people do not take that seriously. So People started to believe that what is happening inside the gym is not something important, so trainees do not come back to the studio. And we don't have enough non-contact educational contents, and the martial arts take tradition very seriously. We have a closed mind. In the meantime, home training is rising very rapidly. Home training, barbell, and these things are getting more and more popular. So in just 3 seconds, 1,400 camping equipments are being sold. It is selling like hotcakes. So another challenge focusing on martial arts education is how about going online or virtually? So Taekwondo is such a big market. I watched this from Buka's video clip. So when we tried online or virtual mode, parents gave a good feedback or response. But how about paying for these services? So when we make people pay for these services, people just laugh at it. So this is my first time that I hear about this online Taekwondo class. So I don't need to do this. And Taekwondo is the first thing that we should keep when my kid is getting higher grade. So parents take their kids to amusement parks, cafes, even though those facilities are indoors. So there is some discrepancy between how people perceive danger. We have been too complacent. We are in the era of new normal. So online competition is getting more and more popular. So when it comes to cycling, people take on ergonomics, and they had a virtual competition in Madrigal. People take joysticks and play the tennis match. It was not just joke. The price was very high, like 100,000 USD. So when it comes to boxing, so in order to promote the interest from boxing athletes and participants, so there was a virtual match between Mike Tyson and Ali. So when it comes to Pumse competition of Taekwondo, we can do it. Of course, sparring is impossible, but this is how athletes are actually doing matches. I don't know the exact name. So when athletes play, there is an energy bar on the upside. So when the energy bar runs out, so the other player wins. This promotes entertainment. So IT, science, and this everything are standing out because of the COVID-19. So when it comes to new normal, this should not become a normal. We should expect this new normal to finish at some point. So we are prolonging our lives. This should not be the ultimate solution. This is like a temporary alternative. So we live in the we should prepare ourselves for the post-COVID-19. So the world has changed. So YouTube generates a lot of YouTubers and hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenues for some individuals. We didn't expect this big phenomenon. So everything is possible. So I believe martial arts has been driven by only tradition. We were close-minded and we failed to develop the right educational contents. So we didn't pay attention to how to apply new movement into traditional martial arts. Now is the perfect time to try something new. To do that, we need to think about what makes traditional martial arts unique, or what commonalities martial arts share with other area. So we need to continue to engage in active communication for joint research. In post-COVID-19, the first two is about the direction from now and until the near term. So we need to promote minimal education. As Professor Kim delivered a presentation in session 1, of course, we can provide both on and offline content to students in the minimal way. So we need to develop content fit for such minimal-driven education. So online education in martial arts is in its infancy. So we need to start in full swing. So number 2, we need to develop a joint community so that information sharing can happen very actively. So this kind of international seminar is very meaningful. We need to integrate our voices to find out the right direction. So this kind of joint community should continue to be expanded going forward. Last but not least, martial artists or practitioners need to take flexible approaches. We shouldn't be close-minded. All the activities and movements in martial arts are an area that can be applied to other PE in schools. But we used to take someone with different ideas and different approaches in the wrong way. We should be open-minded by preserving tradition and seeking to transform how we approach traditional martial arts. And this is how we should prepare ourselves for post-COVID-19. In the post-COVID-19, in a nutshell, the martial arts will change dramatically in a both good way or bad way. So the impact the COVID-19 imposed on us will continue to drive our life for the next 10 years and beyond. So we should be brave enough to brace for these changes. Thank you for your attention. Thank you.
네,
코로나 바이러스 확산으로
Due to the spread of the COVID-19, he talked about the crisis in terms of the martial arts education. Let's also give another big hand to his great presentation. Next, we'll be joined by Kang Yoo-jin, senior coach of Namchang Taekwondo Academy, and she'll be talking about the martial arts education in the era of post-corona. Let's also give another big hand. Good afternoon, everyone. I am the second presenter for the last session. My name is Kang Yoo-jin. During session 1, the title was about the measures on the martial arts as well as the pandemic era, and the session was also very meaningful and useful. My title of the presentation is the martial arts education in the era of post-COVID-19. Let me briefly introduce about myself. Throughout my presentation, I'm going to share about the relevant ideas from the perspective of the on-site. I started to learn the Taekwondo at the age of 5, and now I am a senior coach of the Namchang Taekwondo Academy to provide a lot of the lessons to our students. So my DNA is actually the Taekwondo player. So once again, taking these opportunities, I'm very delighted to give the presentations for today's seminar. I'm very grateful to have these opportunities. This is the contents of my presentation. First of all, introduction, and then phenomenon and the current status of our society and the post-COVID era, and then the voices from the Taekwondo on site after the pandemic, as well as the martial arts education in the post-COVID era. First, introduction. As mentioned by Mr. Kim, I don't really remember his name. As the previous speaker mentioned about the phenomenon of the post-COVID-19, for this year, the coronavirus, the COVID-19, derived a lot of the terms throughout this year. Probably it's better for me to skip the detailed information about these terms, as already mentioned by the previous speaker. Since December last year, 2019, and Korea is one of the nearest countries from China, and we have encountered the first confirmed cases as of January 20th for this year. So around the world, the level 1 to 2.5 in terms of the countermeasures against the coronavirus have been taken under the government. Of course, in this regard, our normal life got a lot transformed. For example, for the opening of the schools and universities and indoor facilities, actually there have been a lot of the postponement as well as the shutdown due to the pandemic. Under these certain challenges, some of the brands had also changed their logos as well, along with the social distancing and a lot of transformations in our daily lives. And in what way should we look into? First of all, let me share with you the shadow, the negative aspects of the COVID-19. Around the world, unfortunately, we have seen a lot of the emotional aspects. And then towards the consumers, the consumer pattern and behavior were surveyed, especially for the Korean consumers. They have responded that their economic conditions got worsened due to the pandemic, leading to the more online services rather than offline services. With such weakening consumer sentiment, like for the basic necessities like the clothing and the food and house, all the consumer patterns have been worsened and the shrink as well from the pandemic. Before, I used to go to the theater and go to cinema once a month, but nowadays I don't really visit the movie theaters nowadays. And then I have not really been using and visiting the hair shop, so that's why I have such a long hair, which is very not normal in my daily life. Now we are seeing that very unprecedented conditions and the circumstances. If you visit like the indoor facilities or any types of the complexes, like for senior citizens, whenever they go into the indoor facilities, they are also recommended to register their records of the name and the contact information because they are not really familiar with the QR scanning procedures. But in this regard, probably we could have also opportunities at the same time during the pandemic. With increasing online activities, we can save time and space as new opportunities in the pandemic. In addition, like data, Fitbit, it's one of the platforms in surveying and researching the patterns for the exercise and healthy lives. And according to the result of those surveys, since March this year, the people unfortunately encounter less amount of their workload as well as their movement in terms of the physical activities. Therefore, of course, if they spend more time inside, the amount of the exercise or going out got a lot reduced. There are also new terms like the 확진자 in Korea, which means that those people who got weight very dramatically within a short time, and also zombie to signify the students who are using the Zoom for their online cases, only staying at their home, like zombie. And as we are encountering some the opportunities and the crisis, and as we encounter the newly coined terms like the 확진자 and zombie as a new terms in Korea, there will be more and more awareness in exercise and their health management. And around the world, as we are seeing such chaos around the world, along with the conflicts and confrontations, let's also take a look at the voices of the Taekwondo Academy after the pandemic. Let me share with you two ideas from the perspectives of suppliers and demander.
대체로 공급자들은 고난을 겪고 있습니다.
In general, the suppliers are facing the hardships, challenges,
바로 영업을 일시
because if they encounter less number of students or trainees, then they absolutely need to face such the financial difficulties, leading to a lot of the impacts on their survival. As reported on the news, a lot of the time, especially for the directors and the masters, they also need to have the second job as well to be survived as well during the pandemic. Of course, some of the directors and some of the demonstrators have tried conducting the online classes for their students, but actually they are also facing some limitations due to the decreasing income and revenues.
태권도도 마찬가지.
Likewise,
이렇게 되면 태권도 경기
for the taekwondo, like competitions or industrial fields would really induce and face very less number of amounts in their work. In addition, like the college classes among the taekwondo students and the professors, and they also face a lot of the challenges to get prepared for the online cases. And as most of the competitions got cancelled or postponed, the players or to be players, along with the functions and the roles of the coaches and directors, are seeing very less and less amount of their work during this time of the COVID-19. It's also high time for some of the students to save their training cost as well. And for some of the students and the people who are not familiar with using online classes, they could feel very reluctant to have access into the online classes as well. And one of the parents of the students whom will be enter into the college, and you can also see the comments here on the bottom left. The parent responded that for the perspectives of the university students, it's just very challenging for such students to pay such high amount of the cost for their tuition fees. Then, in this regard, along with the pandemic, and if we consider the changes and transformations in our daily life, combined with such a pandemic, then in the era of post-COVID-19, what direction should we focus on for our martial arts education? That's my next theme of my next part. And around the world, as well as across the societies, let me also give you some of the challenging issues as well. Of course, it's still difficult for the stakeholders to provide online classes with some of the limitations. And as demanders are facing a lot of the complaints and a lot of the difficulties, they could have some passive consumer sentiment as well. And in terms of the crisis, we are also encountering the emergence of the digital vulnerable group as well in terms of the access into the online classes. But in terms of untact in Korea, which means the contactless era, of course, the crisis, but also opportunities can also emerge over the time in which the modern people and modern society are now starting to encounter the importance of healthy lifestyles as one of the positive acts. So I think that it's a time to utilize our crisis and transform our crisis into opportunities. And we can apply these opportunities in the martial arts education so that rather than just saving the tuition fees or training costs, we can also save the time and spaces as well if we utilize online platforms. Of course, we may face some of the negative aspects and perspectives towards the online classes for the martial arts, but it's also a very urgent time for us to promote such importance and significance of the martial arts education in this era. Absolutely, for stakeholders, it's also very crucial for them to establish such a very easily accessible platform so that the users can have their access into the online classes. Now it's very difficult to have the very face-to-face meetings and interactions. It's a time that we need to utilize the online classes as much as possible. In conclusion, for some of the Taekwondo academies and on-site stakeholders, they're also trying to fast adapt to such circumstances and transformations during the COVID-19 because they're also jumping into the online cases as well as online competitions to make sure that they continue to have involvement and attention from other students and the stakeholders as well. And one of the examples is that the competition, the World Taekwondo, the competition in Denmark will be hosted via online platform rather than just face-to-face competition. Of course, a lot of the people expected that the competition would be cancelled, but it will be hosted via the online platform. It's a time to set the foundation for transforming such crises into opportunities, and these are the activities required during the pandemic of the time. By utilizing contactless platform, it's a time to develop such educational tools via the online platform. In this regard, by pursuing the healthy lifestyles as well as pursuing the right directions for the martial arts education, so that we can also enhance such spirit and importance of the martial arts education, and these are hopes that I would like to see and realize in the future. It's the time not to give up anything. So it's the time to give the efforts, and we can also see a lot of the cases from stakeholders. It's a high time. Even though we are facing the COVID-19, like 200, 300 students are well managed and established by the directors as well as the masters as well. We also need to see their efforts and their dedications, how they have developed and how they manage such a very good classes and an education for their students. It's the time to get some lessons. Thank you very much for your attention. She talks about the differences in the perspectives of the supplier and the vendor, and it's a time to transform the crisis into opportunities. Let's just give another big hand to Yujin Gang for her great presentation. Next, we'll be joined by Won Chang-hwan, member of Chungju City Taekyon Demo Team. Let's also give another big hand.
Hello everyone, I'm Won Chang-hwan, a member of Chungju City Taekyon Demo Team. I'd like to appreciate all of you for your steady attention and interest put towards how to move forward martial arts in the post-COVID-19. In this session, Professor Sanko Ruiz let us know how to do Danjeon Hoop. So how about doing another round of Danjeon Hoop? Are you ready? When I shout and follow me. Thank you. So today, I would like to talk about the necessity of the development of a Taekyon demonstration program with educational values during a pandemic. First of all, let me focus on historical and cultural values. And next, I would like to focus on how Taekyon played a due role in martial arts education and its changing aspect in different era. As Ms. Kang delivered a presentation, Taekwondo waited for her to come. But for me, I met Taekyon for the first time in the form of demonstration. So I would like to talk about what role it had on the beginner or novice. So last but not least, I would like to focus on, in the pandemic era, what kind of role of Taekyon demonstration will play going forward. So educational values of Taekyon is related to its history. So after the Japanese colonial rule, it had a very important role. In 1980s, Taekyon was recognized as a national intangible cultural heritage. In 2011, Taekyon was designated as a World Cultural Heritage by UNESCO. So Taekyon demonstration contributed to an increased level of awareness and recognition. Not only that, the value of culture, art, and the Koreanness was delivered through Taekyon. In different era, this is how Taekyon demonstration evolved. So those who lead Taekyon demonstration and the spatial thing and something supplementary will be covered here in 1980s and 1990s and 2000s. I'd like to focus on these three categories. In 1980s, those recognized as a cultural heritage and those who were passed down from ancestors focused on 견주기, 본떼기, 마주보기, and these were applied to the demonstration. So it was highly effective in showing the true essence of Taekyon, but it was confined to only demonstration happening in yard or big yard. So it missed some other factors like space. But in 1990s, non-standing demo team started to play an important role. The same applied to other areas like Taekwondo. When there was a performance, like 1 to 2 months ago, people gathered up preparing for a performance and they show performance. This was how they did in 1990s. And they needed a little bit of a direction from a director. And in 2000s, an aspect of musical and story were reflected into the demonstration. And some facility added to performance and lighting, audio, and this kind of effects maximize the level of performance of Taekyon. But in 1980s, the essence of Taekyon was shown. But in 2000s, something that is surfaced on the outside was receiving more attention. This is how the Taekyon demo is happening on site and in the educational field. After the UNESCO received Taekyon to its cultural heritage, the things got moving very actively. So a Chungju Taekyon demo projects held many rounds of performance and 32 rounds of dispatching towards foreign countries for the last 10 years. And one of the most effective one was the Polish 33 school Taekyon demonstration. So in 2019, our demo team was sent to this school, and there was a collaborative project working with Polish school. And Polish school was willing to re-invite us. So in September, ICM Open School project dispatched a national trainee to this area. So earlier this year, in the pandemic era, the demonstration team lost its momentum. Not only demonstration team, but also a studio or fitness center gym suffered a lot. So for me, who got paid, things are relatively okay. But for those who are working solo or who are in the non-martial arts area, unless they get direct support or subsidy, they have a great difficulty in making ends meet. Let me give you one typical example. I visited my friend's office and I had a dinner with my friend to share some frustrations. So, as it was difficult to go to the restaurant, so we had delivered the dinner, but the delivery guy was one of my friends who participated in demonstration project with me. And after taking off helmet, he called me, "Hey, master." So this was a very sad reality, and this is the new normal. So under current circumstances, so what kind of currents receive attention or spotlight? Many of you have viewed this video clip already. The title is Feel the Rhythm of Korea, shown by Korea Tourism Organization. This garners the highest hit ever. So this dance troupe show very easy to follow but entertaining movement. So Inal Chi covers the background music. Of course, NLT reinterpreted pansori or traditional Korean music. And the musical instruments includes not book or traditional Korean percussion instrument, but bass guitar, which is a Western instrument. So like Gosu plays its book, Inalchi plays its individual role in such a unique manner. So it is popular, right? So we need to think about how our martial arts demonstration team can draw a lesson from this kind of phenomenon. In the demonstration after 2010, we have engaged in lots of efforts. We utilize AR, VR, and demo-based educational contents were provided and distributed. And with Moon Jae-in administration in place, lots of performance factors were shown focusing on interactive engagement. So yet Taekyeonpan or the Taekyeon performance in a yard is played in which participants and Taekyeon masters are engaging in interactive engagement. And a lot of K-pop bands like BTS are utilizing media arts based on AI, and Taekyeon is tapping into such kind of new factor. So this is the maybe biggest size Artist Electronica held in Australia had our performance and our tickets were sold out twice. So a variety of factors and performance techniques, skills, and Taekyeon demonstration practices were delivered here. And I'd like to take this to a next level. And I'd like to provide this to the regular people as a supplier of this Taekyeon content. We need to think about whether we would focus only on something fancy or whether we would focus more on something essential. Of course, having a win-win would be fantastic. But we need to think about what makes Taekyeon or Taekwondo essential or unique, fit for those with demand. So we need to develop such programs tailored to those people by making strenuous efforts that is in line with pandemic. We need to think about what kind of educational values and contents we should develop. And as a practitioner, master, and coaches, we need to think about this issue. Let me conclude today's last presentation. Thank you for your attention.
네, 시대별로 변화해온 무예
He shared about the test and the cases in terms of the pandemic. So, thank you very much for your great presentation, Mr. Wan. It's a time to invite the three speakers for the session, and we are going to have the Q&A session. Moderator for this session will be Cho Hyun-ju, Senior Researcher of Korea Institute of Sport Science. Let's welcome them with a big round of applause. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Cho Hyun-ju from Korea Institute of Sport Science. First of all, from such early morning today, they're having a lot of the people who are participating. Thank you so much for your time. And also, I'd like to especially thank the ICM and the officials for inviting me here. I am in charge of policy research, especially in the martial arts as highlighted by the government authorities. And I think that there are a lot of the things that we have to congratulate. Now we are having the third International Martial Arts Academic Seminar for this year. And we have also had a publication ceremony as well. And the new building is such a fantastic. And I feel that, okay, this is the right size and the scale of such international, the martial arts convention center, as you noted earlier. And I think that if you look at the brochures and pamphlets for today's seminar, it's just very high quality. That it's also very high quality compared to the other seminars and symposiums in other seminars. And to us as researchers, it's also very high quality and very sophisticated contents of the brochures today. So for the session 3, we're going to talk about the ideas and solutions among with the experts and speakers. In terms of the martial arts, of course, it can't be defined as the concept not to be defamed or not to be destroyed. But for the perspective of the youth, I think it's a time to listen to their ideas among the youth, how they think about the concept of martial arts. I thought that it could be an informal session, but now being joined by the three masters and speakers, we are so having some more fruitful discussion as I imagine with the speakers today. While reviewing some of the topics and agendas for this session, and everywhere is intertwined and interconnected with the pandemic, not only in Korea but also in other countries, of course, that at the same time, it's a time for us to analyze the scope and the issues of the pandemic. By reviewing the presentation slides from the previous two speakers as scholars and educators in the fields, I think that within some of the framework or the systems, we also need to have some perspectives and viewpoints in dealing with the pandemic. And I am seeing that you could have very good the foundations for today's discussions. And I'm sure that you as young scholars are pretty ready to adapt to the changes in the pandemic. So beyond the COVID-19 era, it's also another time that we can also consider some of the preparations for the next age and next era. But on the way coming here, of course, I felt very difficult to decide the topics and agendas for this panel discussion. But by taking these opportunities, you are the young martial artists and young scholars. If you have any comments or any suggestions that you like to deliver to the audience, or if you like to share with your ideas with the young leaders, could you make some comments for this panel discussion? And that, if there are any questions from the floor, we can also discuss them later. So if you have any ideas, any suggestions you'd like to make here, because you could have not really have enough time for your presentation, so please feel free to share your comments. And then let me also give the opportunities to the author of the presentation today.
저는 이제 그 IT
So in the area of IT and computing area, I'm highly interested in this area. So this area is highly accessible and friendly to me, and we would like to promote these tools in a very proactive manner. So as Professor Sanko Ruiz emphasized, traditional martial arts are heavily driven by tradition, and we need to reflect like K-pop into this for some change. So there is something like YouTube, Band, and Zoom, and remote learning is happening very actively in other areas, and the mobile market itself is expanding. But look around. We don't have such thing. In our area, I used to do Japanese fencing, but there's none in my area. But when it comes to Taekwondo has a relatively bigger market, and they take on new challenges, but not enough. So I'm not talking about we need to take traditional marts into like next level. We need to tap into a new tool like IT and media. This is something essential or necessary. So the younger generation should do this, or high-level organization or agency should pay keen attention to how to utilize these tools by giving support, and this will help our organization. Thank you for your great input. So high-tech and IT is an area where the younger generation have strong suit. But something wouldn't have happened virtually. Just before I was in the education for PE for the disabled, and the virtual learning, remote running is happening for them as well. We need to go beyond contact-based education. So we should go beyond such a stereotype. Thank you.
For me, while preparing my presentation, I felt again that ultimately for the martial arts, the objective of martial arts is to educate, regardless of any types of sport, not just to teach skills and techniques, but also to spread and change the life of students and trainees, because we have a lot of the high educational values in martial arts. Of course, we are facing some challenges for the directors and demonstrators by facing less number of the students, but we can also seize another opportunities from crisis. I'm just talking about the perspectives of the Taekwondo. So far, we have seen mechanisms and operations among the Taekwondo Academy, but I believe that most of the educational mechanisms were only focused on the quantity, or probably most of the circumstances will only focus on the platforms or the venues for students and youth to just play around. Of course, we also need to find out some of the viewpoints from the parents, because they don't really want their children to come to Taekwondo Academy during the pandemic. I believe throughout this time, this challenging time, for the Taekwondo leaders and demonstrators and directors, the objective, the target for us to really reflect upon the past that they have done so far. And around the world, so many people are also playing Taekwondo as one of the popular sports in the martial arts. In this regard, a lot of foreigners are actually visiting Korea to learn Taekwondo. But for those trainees and the practitioners, they are also facing some limitations to visit Korea due to the pandemic, and they have to wait a long time. But if we provide online classes, then they can also get some opportunities to learn Taekwondo via the online platform. Of course, they can save the cost and time because they don't have to stay in Korea if they access into the online platforms to learn Taekwondo. Or, for example, they can have some interactions or dialogues with the masters that they really admire. So based on the IT, we can also actually develop the new opportunities, I believe. Thank you so much, because you have also had a lot of the values and a lot of concerns throughout your long time survey as well as research. It's also time, because she also pointed out that we also need to reflect upon some of the parts that we missed in the past. And on the other hand, like for a lot of the different technologies, it's also time to really seize opportunities. Thank you. Mr. Wan?
제가 연구
So when I conducted research, I found out this. Of course, every area of education, including martial education, have this commonality. Online-based system or learning is becoming the norm. So the education setting is changing. So lecture-driven education causes some challenges. Of course, we need to supply or provide this martial arts education. I think we need to take the current situation as a new opportunity by promoting interactive education. So by focusing on this, we need to deliver a better education system for the next generation. So you focus on interactive communication-driven education. So when I saw your research, so please raise your hand if you saw this KTO video clip. Oh, many of you missed it. Please watch this. This is a must-watch. So when I watched this, this video was made by KTO, or Korea Tourism Organization. So it is never easy for a public organization like KTO to produce such a quality PR video. As Mr. Won mentioned, when we promote identity, like Professor Sanko emphasized, we might lose identity when we focus on popularity. I totally agree with you. So while keeping identity alive and running, we can also revitalize fusion or convergence. This is what the video clip of KTO delivered. So the same is happening to trot or crossover between an orchestra or other music genre. So some unimaginable combination is happening in other sectors as well. So this is like back to the origin. So this back to the origin might bring another value to our life. So you take this COVID-19 situation as a new opportunity by finding the new source of inspiration. So you are studying, you are conducting research, and you are practicing by yourselves. So as the younger generation, I think you will be able to overcome these challenges and make our lives better. And this is the inspiration I got from your studies. So I think there is a reason you are here. So from the floor, do you have any questions? Feel free to present any questions. Please, we might take only one question from the floor. Only one question.
I'm from Keiming University. My name is Son Ju-hyun. For session 3, this session, I had a lot of the meaningful presentations regarding the complaints of demanders especially. And my question goes to all the three presenters here. While managing your Taekwondo Academy or running businesses, how would you pursue the parents when it comes to the online classes for students?
학교에 있기
So for me, I'm in a university, so I don't directly communicate with parents. I communicate with university students, so this case might be irrelevant to your case, but first of all, so paying for certain services, so we are not ready for this kind of model, so this is something natural. So we cannot bring a magic from this situation. We need to take this situation realistically and brace ourselves for this scenario. When it comes to the post-COVID, we need to expand our horizon, even covering what will happen after the COVID-19. So virtual learning, remote learning is the most content that we continue to bring to our educational scene. Of course, I cannot give the perfect answer to the parents who are complaining of paying for virtual learning services, but we need to develop contents fit for other circumstances, and we need to reflect such contents into our community. So of course, this might not be the perfect answer. So yeah, that is my conclusion. Thank you.
아마
I believe that with Mr. Park, I think that regarding such a cold-minded the responses and reactions from those students' parents, we also try to collect some of the comments and feedbacks from parents before. And I have not experienced in getting such negative feedbacks from parents yet. During the level 2.5 in social distancing measures, the parents even though they didn't really send their kids to the Taekwondo Academy for 2 or 3 weeks and the social distancing measures, but actually they paid the class fees, the tuition fees as well. So in this regard, as just mentioned by the previous speaker, now it's a time in the COVID-19, and once we have the final end of this pandemic, and as we gone through a lot of the difficulties, and probably the concept of the time or space will be transformed. Of course, before, like students used to go to the school for classes, but nowadays there'll be probably more and new opportunities for students not to really visit or go to schools for classes. And I think that there are a lot of the ways that are being investigated for the further and new opportunities. And I believe that there will be more positive feedbacks from parents in the future if we build efficiently. Of course, for some of the classes, we are doing online classes. But for me, like from number 1 to number 10, I think for the classes, I have to also teach every single of the skills and movement if we have very interaction with the students. So for scholars and educators, probably we need to reflect upon the things that we did not really consider our students' conditions efficiently before the COVID-19.
So I provide education, but my major job is demonstration. So I'd like to give you a more relevant example. I work for the Chungju City demonstration troupe. So I get paid by the city officials, but I might be in trouble after telling this to you. So because of the COVID-19 for 3 to 4 months, our demonstration performance stopped completely. So our content was delivered in a virtual manner. So we are producing the online-driven contents. So as a performer, whenever we upload a new content, some say, oh, we will pay you for that content. But as someone in the field, that should not be the focus. So there's the issue of what to focus on between those who supply and those who demand. So is data-driven thing more important? Is producing high-quality contents more important? Of course, creating decent quality data, very important. I might be in trouble because of this. So, of course, we'll take one more question. Okay.
Please use the microphone. Can you hear me? Okay. First of all, as presented by the member of the Chungju City Tech and Demo team, Mr. Wan, I fully agree with your ideas. First of all, I think it's very important to really visit and have some interactions with all the stakeholders. And I also felt very impressive and motivating to give these ideas actually.
Administration of UNESCO ICM demonstration team of this year, 2020, till this morning. Actually, I didn't expect this level of attention with concentration and enthusiasm. There are more participants than spectators of martial art demonstration of one day in this year, 2020. This kind of collective intelligent event should keep going as they should do. Thank you, speakers. Thank you, every one of participants, and especially thank you, UNESCO ICM staffs, International Center of Martial Arts. It was very helpful, and it was a great honor to be here with you, all of you. Thank you.
네.
감사합니다.
네.
Thank you so much. And as the last person who raised the question, thank you very much for your comments. And I think that we have just started the venue for discussions. It's also time to have the more exchange ideas for the youth so that we can look forward to the more venues and the more ideas for the further cooperations and development. And we really also look forward to the more requests and the more support from the UNESCO ICM in the future. Let's also give another big hand to the three speakers for this session. Thank you.
네, 이렇게 저희
This was the end of the session 3. To the moderator and presenters and all the discussants and the panelists, can you also give a big round of applause for their time and efforts? Thank you.
코로나 바이러스 팬데믹으로 인한
In the midst of the COVID-19, it's also time that we have discussed the best practices, status of the project, and countermeasures as one of the agendas for today's seminar. And we have also gathered together here as well as all the participants joining on the online platform. Really hope that you can have very meaningful memories from today's seminar. From this seminar today, we hope that we can transform crisis into opportunities. Before you go out, and if you don't mind, please fill in the survey sheet on your desk, and then you can just leave the papers so that we can collect them. Once again, thank you very much for your great participation today. And let us wrap up International Martial Arts Academic Seminar 2020. Thank you very much.